I was shown a picture of a boy when I was only 14 years old. This was a boy I would have to marry. Me and my two sisters and brother were raised in a strict Punjabi household in northern England. My sisters and I were not allowed to be heard. We were just to be seen. If we didn't do as we were told, we were punished. Sometimes we got put in the cellar. My mom would close the light from the outside and the door would be locked. So when I was 14, a man came over to our shop. The man showed a picture of a boy to my mom, and she said, "This is a very good-looking boy. You are very lucky to have a chance to marry a boy like this. What do you think? Do you say yes?" If I had said no, I would have been slapped. And I said, "He's okay." A couple of weeks passed. We went over to my uncle's house, and prior to that, I was told that I would see the boy. The boy had come over from India. Over the years, I realized it was my engagement party. I had already graduated school. My mom didn't want me to go to college. You're getting married when you're 18, so there's no point you going to college. So I was denied my rights to an education. I knew the only way to get away from this would be to run away as soon as I turned 18. And so I had about £5,000 saved up. I also booked my bus ticket to London. I was very, very nervous that day. I managed to get down the stairs and I was so scared, like thinking somebody might be watching me, or somebody might catch me. Luckily, that didn't happen. But as I boarded the bus, again, my heart was like really heavy, thinking, what if they've come here now? They know. And the whole trip, I was like so scared and also like sad, thinking, what have I done? I'm hurting my family. I shouldn't have done this. But there's like no going back. It's something I knew I had to do, but I was also very scared and nervous about what was happening now, that this was a big step that I was taking. There's no going back. So anyway, I arrived in London. I stayed in a bed and breakfast hotel. I ended up staying in London for a couple of months. I just fell in love with London. It was the first place that I was allowed to have freedom. After 2 months, I kind of felt homesick and I knew I had to call home. And then when my mom answered, she seemed very cold and distant. And then she told me that what I had done was bad. She also told me that my grandma was very ill. I was really close to my grandma, so I thought my grandma was ill because of me, because of what I had done. I think the guilt was kind of like getting to me that I had caused like my grandma to be ill. I succumbed to giving in, to going back home. I wish I had never placed a call home. When I finally did get back home to Hull, I discovered that my grandma was not ill. It was just a trick, just to get me back home. And before I knew it, the guilt and pressure were put on me to marry this boy. I was told he's been waiting for me for 4 years. My mom did this to me, but I had no choice now because they were waiting and all the community knows that I was engaged to him. If I didn't go through with this, according to my mom, they would have shame put upon their family name. The matchmaker knew that the boy had come over once and got into England, and that a second time, like maybe he wouldn't be so lucky. So his daughter lived in Denmark. He basically said the wedding can happen in Denmark. I gave in because I kind of like realized that there's no getting away from them now. I can't run away again. And now if I do give in to going to Denmark, I'll be in another country. And if I have to marry this boy, I'll only have to run away from one person. The wedding date came up. People were coming over. My family flew over from England. It seemed like the only person who wasn't happy was me. That night, we were in the same apartment where the matchmaker's daughter lived, and my mom was still there. I hadn't actually done it with anybody because I knew like the right thing to do was to wait till your wedding. I had to be with a stranger on my wedding night. Who wants to be with a stranger on their wedding night when you don't have any feelings for the person? You barely know them, haven't really spoken to him that much, and now I have to be with him just because he's my husband. But again, I did what I was told, just like I did what I was told when I was 14. The next day, my mom asked, do you want to go on honeymoon anywhere? I chose Italy. Again, how can it be a honeymoon if your heart's not happy? You don't even know the person. People may think, oh, she's in the most beautiful place in the world. But like nobody really knows the story behind the picture. I told him when we got to the hotel room in Venice, there was actually 2 single beds, and I'm not sure why. I think they knew we were on a honeymoon, and if I had probably wanted to, or he had wanted to, we probably could have gone to the lobby and like explained that, yeah, we want, a double bed or something, but none of us did. Within 2 weeks, I think I told him that I wanted to be divorced from him. He was very upset and told me that I had to just allow more time for this. I think he called my family behind my back and just talked to my parents. Before I knew it, it was 6 weeks after the wedding, my dad came out to Denmark. He tried to talk me into staying with him. My husband took him to the bar. My husband came back alone. I could tell something was wrong. He turned on the music and I just had this horrible feeling. And then he approached me and told me, if I can't have you, no one else is going to have you either. Then he proceeded to strangle me and put his hands on my neck. I don't know how I even managed to do this, but I told him, I said, I'm so sorry that I've been a really bad wife to you. I'll do whatever you want. I'll be a good wife. And I told him I was sorry. He felt less angry, but he still proceeded to have his way with me. When he was done, he got dressed and told me he was going to get my dad, and that when my dad returned, that I couldn't say anything about this to my dad. So I just nodded. And as I was left alone in that apartment, I felt so alone and so scared. My dad came on his own. I told him my husband just raped me and he was strangling me. He said, he's your husband. He has every right to do that to you. But who gave him the right? They gave him the right. And so I knew instinctively that I had to get away from both of them. My husband came back and I asked them, would they like a cup of tea? And they said yes. And I went out to the kitchen and I don't even know how I knew that this was my opportunity, but I knew I had to get away that night. I just knew it. I put the water on to boil. I grabbed my handbag and they didn't see me, but I grabbed it and I went down that hallway really softly and quietly, and I opened the door and closed it quietly behind me, and I went down those 100 steps and I was fearful again that they were following me, but I managed to get downstairs out onto the street and I got a taxi and I went to a friend's house, and this is how I escaped. I didn't see my husband again, and all my things, all my belongings were at the apartment, even things that had value to me like my school certificate. But I did file the police report and I did file for divorce, and the divorce took a long time too because the police had asked me, where is he? Do you have any idea? And I told them the address of the shop where he worked, and so I don't know if they found him or not. I really would have liked it if they deported him to go back to India, because I think his whole purpose all along was to go to England and live there. I moved to America in 1992 and I was in DC for 7 years before I moved to San Diego. What the other people just don't realize here in this country or in San Diego or at San Diego State University, they didn't know this was going on, but yet when I read other stories, I know their pain is my pain. What they went through, I went through very, very similar. It was my story. And so it was first on social media that I started sharing. So it was during the pandemic, I finally finished my book. I wrote this book, Forced to Marry Him, A Lifetime of Tradition and the Will to Break It. I should have been able to enjoy my childhood. I should have been able to play with my friends, but instead, I was domesticated starting at age 7. I was robbed of my childhood. Instead, I was domesticated to one day be the perfect wife for someone. There's child marriage victims here in America who are being forced into marriage from an early age. It's going on here, and we all need to change this. We need to speak up about this. It's my story to tell. This shouldn't have happened to me. I kept silent for so many years, and now I finally come to the point where I know that I had to talk about it. I'm being punished again. It's the second time in my life I've been disowned again, now by the rest of my family. This is why most forced marriage survivors won't even write a book, because they'll wait till they feel it's safe, and sometimes it's never the time. Let girls be girls and play with dolls and have their childhood. Don't force them to become a bride, or even boys, sometimes this happens to them too. Don't make them grooms before their age. This is happening to boys as well as to girls. That's why it's important to say that it happened to my brother too. This shouldn't be happening anymore. And thank you for listening to me.